They said it was just a mining ship. A giant, white, moxie vessel paid for by the billionaire Howard Hughes to scoop metal rocks off the Pacific floor. Cameras toured the decks. Reporters wrote about a bold new industry, but none of that was true. Under that steel skin hid one of the wildest heists in history. A CIA plan to steal a sunken Soviet submarine intact right off the ocean floor. The codename was Project Azorian. The ship was the Glomar Explorer, and the whole operation was designed to look boring. Our story starts with a disaster. In March 1968, a Soviet ballistic missile submarine K-129 vanished in the North Pacific. It carried nuclear missiles, code books, and a fire hose of secrets. The Soviets searched for weeks, then gave up. The ocean is big. The sub was lost. But American hydrophones had heard something an underwater thud in a specific patch of sea. The U sent a spy sub to verify. On the seafloor, 3 miles down, they found wreckage that matched K-129. It was lying in the dark, far beyond the reach of divers, beyond the crush depth of any normal salvage. To the CIA, this was a once-in-a-century chance. If they could lift parts of that submarine, they might get nuclear warheads to study, cryptographic gear, logs hard proof of how their rival fought and thought. So, how do you lift a 1,750-ton submarine from 5 kilometers down without anyone noticing? You don't send a Navy ship and invite a confrontation. You hide in plain sight. Enter Howard Hughes. The eccentric billionaire agreed to lend his name in a plausible cover story: undersea mining. In the late 60s, scientists had publicized manganese nodules, potato-sized rocks rich in nickel, copper, and cobalt scattered across the abyssal plains. Perfect. The CIA would build a ship to harvest nodules, sail to the target site, lower a giant claw, and haul up a submarine. If anyone asked questions, the answer was simple: we're mining. That ship, the Hughes Glomar Explorer, was an engineering fever dream. Imagine a skyscraper laid on its side, with a hole straight through the middle. That hole, the moon pool, let crews lower machinery straight down inside the hull, hidden from outside view. The ship carried a mile-high steel tower, a drilling string made of pipe sections that locked together, and a secret payload. A set of steel fingers, the size of a building, designed to grab a broken submarine like a giant hand. They called the grabbing mechanism Clementine. It wasn't a hook. It was a cage. Lower it, open its jaws, slide it under the sub, close the jaws, and lift slowly, evenly, until the prize was tucked into the moon pool out of sight. Every part of the plan fought the ocean. At 16,500 feet down, the water pressure is 8 tons per square inch. Steel bends, welds creak. One bad wave and you can snap a pipe like dry pasta. So the Glomar Explorer had massive stabilizers and computers to hold its position in a narrow box over an invisible target, even in heavy swells. The drill string that reached the bottom needed special joints to handle twisting and flexing. Sensors up and down the pipe watched for stress in real time. If load spiked, the crew paused, adjusted, and tried again. It was offshore oil tech turned into spycraft. Meanwhile, the cover had to be airtight. The CIA built a dummy mining industry on paper, patents, press releases, and even real machinery to process nodules. They let journalists aboard. They gave tours of the parts they wanted seen. Workers signed layers of secrecy agreements. When rumors bubbled up, the company line never changed: deep sea mining research. On the Soviet side, ships noticed something odd: a huge American vessel lingering in one patch of ocean. But the Cold War was full of odd things. Without proof, they watched and waited. In the summer of 1974, the Glomar Explorer sailed to the coordinates. Above was empty blue. Below, a torn Soviet sub in pitch black. Crew members, mostly civilians under CIA direction. began the slowest, most delicate grab in maritime history. Down went Clementine, section by section, hour after hour, guided by cameras, lights, and sonar. When the claw reached the bottom, operators opened the fingers, inched forward, and closed around K129. Then they started to lift. It took days. Imagine hauling a collapsed apartment walk up a mine shaft made of water. Every few feet, instruments squealed, computers compensated, and the ship's huge heave compensation system softened the ocean's punch. For a while, everything worked. The load came up. The stress numbers held. The ship's moon pool waited like a mouth. Then somewhere above the halfway point, something broke. Whether a finger failed, a weld cracked, or the sub itself fractured, we still don't know publicly. What's clear is that part of the submarine tore free and fell back to the seafloor. The crew felt the load change. The system groaned. They kept lifting, now with a smaller but still massive chunk of K-129 in the claw. What came up was brought into the hidden bay inside the ship, away from prying eyes. There, in a sealed compartment, analysts examined what they had. Accounts differ on exactly which components were recovered warheads, torpedoes, code gear, documents, but the haul was significant enough to change how both sides thought about ocean secrets. And then came a moment no one had planned for, but everyone treated with respect: human remains. The Glomar crew recovered the bodies of Soviet sailors from the wreckage. There was no protocol for this in a clandestine operation. They built a metal coffin, draped it with a Soviet naval flag, and held a brief ceremony on deck. A chaplain read words of dignity and farewell. Then they committed the remains to the sea. The whole thing was filmed. Years later, after the Cold War ended, the United States quietly gave that footage to Russia. The ship returned to port under its harmless cover, just a research vessel ending a mining cruise. And the CIA tried to keep the whole caper sealed. But secrets leak. In early 1975, reporters started sniffing around. A journalist asked the CIA if a certain ship had really recovered a foreign submarine. The agency did not want to confirm it. They also didn't want to lie. So they invented a phrase we still hear today: "We can neither confirm nor deny." That was the Glomar response, named after this very ship. It was designed to keep a specific secret without admitting the secret exists. And it worked so well that you still hear it in press briefings decades later. So, was Project Azorian a success? From a pure engineering standpoint, astonishing. The ship functioned. The claw worked at least in part. They lifted heavy, fragile wreckage from a depth that would snap most machines. They did it all while pretending to be something else, with rival ships occasionally nearby and the world watching a billionaire's mining experiment. From an intelligence standpoint, partial. They didn't get the whole submarine. But even a section could reveal metallurgy, implosion patterns, guidance hardware, and how the Soviets built their weapons. In the Cold War, a single intact device, one detonator, one code wheel, could repay a program's entire cost. And it forced both sides to rethink what lost at sea really meant. If you can lift a sub from 3 miles down, you can lift other things too. There were plans for a second lift. With the ship already built and the cover still plausible, why not try again? But leaks, cost, and tension made a sequel risky. The Soviets were now watching that patch of ocean closely. The window had closed. The Glomar Explorer was eventually repurposed for real drilling. The CIA mothballed the claw. The story slid into rumor, and then into declassified history. What did this operation change? It proved that cover stories can be industrial scale, not just fake names and badges, but entire companies, patents, and product lines. It showed how far engineering will bend for intelligence. Oil rig tech turned into a spy hand. A moon pool turned into a secret garage. It birthed a phrase, neither confirm nor deny that governments still use. And it left a moral artifact, that burial at sea, a moment of respect inside a deception, crossing the hardest line of the Cold War, the line between enemies and fellow sailors. Look again at the Glomar shape in old photos, big, bland, and boxy. Nothing about it screams spy ship. That was the point. The best cover is something boring, technical, and slightly confusing. We re-picking up rocks from 3 miles down. Sounds crazy enough to be true and too dull to chase. Yet under that dull paint was a caper worthy of a heist movie. Find the treasure, build the tool, invent the job, lift the prize, and leave nothing but questions behind. Project Azorian didn't end the Cold War. It didn't start one either. But it taught both sides a lesson they never forgot. The ocean keeps secrets, but not from engineers with enough time, money, and nerve. And sometimes the only way to hide a miracle is to make it look like work. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this dive into hidden history, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more stories like this one. See you next time.